Orale! Bienvenidos and welcome to the Familia FFB podcast. This is your host, Jorge Martin Familia. It is the NFL Insider Series, el número uno, kicking it off, going to the middle of America, going to Tennessee. Familia, this is one of my favorite times of the year because while you guys think that it's the dead period, we're filling that space with some incredible content, with some incredible insiders, including our invitado de lujo here. So I also want to make sure before you do anything else, Familia FFB, do that like and subscribe on Familia FFB on YouTube. Okay, give me that thumbs up, like this episode. Let's do this. Helps keep me growing. He keeps this growing. Keeps this going out there. Also, make sure we are a proud partner of Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code Familia23, Familia23 if you want to do it in Spanish. I'm going to match you the first $100. I've been playing best ball like crazy since the NFL draft, Familia. And I'm all over Underdog, just doing all these drafts. You might get into a draft room with me. Good luck with that. But you want to keep playing this because you're going to draft all the way to the beginning of the football season. And you can do MLB daily drafts, everything. Just get in those rooms with you. And Familia, as I mentioned, NFL Insider Series is here, and our invitado is, they say third time's the charm, but you know what? I've been charmed every time I have been in the presence of this person. I mean, he is the host of the Caliente, con mucho sabor, the Locked On Titans podcast. I mean, you find him at Tic Tac Titans on Twitter. I call him Tyler Rowland, mi amigo, mi compadre. Welcome back to the Familia FFB.
Thank you so much for having me on. Shout out to the Familia out there. I always enjoy our conversations, whether it be food, football, family, anything. We always seem to have a great time. So happy to be back. And, it may be a little bit of a dead period, but I know every year once this conversation happens that we're getting closer and closer. So the light is at the end of the tunnel, I guess I should say.
Well, it's not a dead period for you. You are daily. You are, as you call it, you've got your everydayers out there on Locked On Titans.
Absolutely. Yeah, awesome. We're crushing it Monday through Friday all the time. In previous years, we've taken a little break, a little slowdown, I'd call it, maybe 3 episodes per week, but not anymore. We're full steam ahead. There's so much to talk about all the time, even in the quote unquote dead periods. 5 days a week, Locked On Titans, YouTube, any podcast platform. Feel free to check it out.
Beast mode is happening on Locked On Titans, Familia.
Right. Oh, right.
Well, so much. Actually, we're going to start with the quarterback position. So we've got, so much intrigue about the position. Ryan Tannehill has been he's the presumptive starter. He's looked best in the OTAs, but also he's got Malik Willis and Will Levis, the second round pick who came in this year. Can you give me kind of a look-see? First off, I guess the 2023 look at the quarterback position, and then beyond this season, because Tannehill is a free agent after this season.
Well, I think it would be incredibly unlikely for anybody other than Ryan Tannehill to be the Titans starter this year, barring an injury to Tannehill, of course. There was a time where maybe a trade would materialize to send Tannehill elsewhere, but I just don't think that that's going to be the case with how far along we are in the process. So I would expect Tannehill to be the starter. And honestly, if you're looking fantasy reasons, you want Tannehill to be the starter. I think Tannehill is the only quarterback on the roster right now that's ready to produce fantasy wide receivers and tight ends and keep Derrick Henry at a rate where, based on where Derrick Henry gets drafted, where you need him to perform. So I think Ryan Tannehill is what's best for all the fantasy players out there, but I think it's also what's best for the Titans in terms of winning games this season. So I think it's Tannehill and nothing else unless injury strikes. As for next year, I think the writing's on the wall a little bit. Tannehill's going into his last year of his contract. So far, we haven't heard any talks about an extension or anything like that. I think the Titans drafted Malik Willis, drafted Will Levis the year after that. I think the Titans are definitely trying to formulate a plan to move on from Tannehill after the season and get cheap quarterback play that may be close to what Tannehill can give you, but I just don't think either of those young guys can do that right now. The reality is Malik Willis barely ever took a snap from under center coming into the NFL. So he had a lot of development, not just in terms of throwing the ball accurately and throwing it hard and fast and to the right place and reading the defense. He had to learn to get in the huddle, call the long plays, all these words and these plays. And he had to kind of develop the operational side of things. So Malik Willis has gotten more comfortable with those, and he's playing better this summer. But we got to wait until we see what he does in training camp and in the preseason to know whether he's taken a big enough jump to realistically be in the conversation to be the quarterback in 2024. I think the reality here is Will Levis will be the quarterback in 2024 for the Titans. He's very similar in terms of the type of player that he is to Ryan Tannehill. I think they even look similar, quite honestly. So like in their faces, you know what I mean? They like resemble each other. They look so similar. I've been making jokes about that since Levis was drafted. So I think realistically, Levis is going to be the quarterback by 2024. I think it's Tannehill in 2023. But I think from fantasy purposes, like if you're in a dynasty league or something like that, and you're looking at Treylon Burks or Chigo Okonkwo, somebody like that from the Titans is a long-term option. I think Levis at his best will probably be pretty similar to Tannehill. So this year, you want it to be Ryan Tannehill, and I think it will be Ryan Tannehill. But when it comes to Will Levis or Malik Willis going forward, I think Levis is the guy that you would bet on because let's just logically, why would the Titans take Will Levis in the second round if they liked Malik Willis, who they just took the year before? So logic would tell you that Will Levis will be the starter for the Titans in the future, I think, as soon as 2024. But I think he's pretty similar to Tannehill. So from a fantasy perspective, I don't think that should hurt Titans players in Dynasty.
So as far as pass volume, they were one of the lowest pass volume teams last year, only 456 total attempts on the season. I mean, it's the same coaching staff. Is it pretty much going to be kind of a low volume passing attack?
Yeah, I think the Titans, but to be honest with you, Jorge, I think from a fantasy standpoint, that could be a good thing. I think you like when football teams are narrow from a fantasy aspect. You don't have to worry about them spreading the targets all over the place. And think about like Tom Brady offenses with the Patriots. They were electric, great offenses. But did they have a fantasy player that you trusted week to week to week outside of Gronkowski? No, you still can't trust the Patriots backfield, for like Stevenson is maybe standing out. But I digress. My entire point is I think that they could still be, and they did change the offense, completely change the offense, new playbook, new terminology, blah, blah, blah. But yes, I still think they are going to be a run-first offense. But I think that the Titans have Treylon Burks. They have Chigo Okonkwo at tight end. So Burks at wide receiver, Okonkwo at tight end, Derrick Henry at running back. I think maybe with the exception of the rookie running back, Tajay Spears, those are really the only fantasy players that you got to worry about on the Titans. And because of, honestly, the bad group of players that they have at the pass-catching positions, I think it's pretty simple to draft for the Titans. You take Henry, you take Okonkwo, you take Burks. Those guys should always get their targets, even with it being a run-first offense. Burks and Okonkwo and Henry, obviously Henry with the run-first offense, but in the passing game, Burks and Okonkwo right now, maybe the Titans add DeAndre Hopkins and we have a different conversation, but right now it's Burks or Okonkwo in the Titans pass game, and I think you feel pretty comfortable with those guys. You don't got to worry about people stealing targets away from them consistently, and even though they're going to run the ball more than other teams, I think those guys are such far and away the best options the Titans have to throw the ball to that they're going to get the ball enough to be viable fantasy options for you and maybe low-end starters.
And I have to give you props on Chigo Okonkwo. I listened back to the episode from last year. You were on the Chig bandwagon right off the bat, and so tip of the cap, movie in. It was and it was kind of the way you said the way you said it. It was in the back half of the season when he really started to pop. He started to pop up on waiver wires, and people started to snap him up because the tight end position is very important. He's been one of my big targets in as far as tight ends because I've been going with the elite quarterback strategy, and so I end up pushing back the tight end. But I look at him and it's like I think it's clear he's going to be as of right now, he's the number 2 target in that offense. And I love what you said about how it's so narrowly focused. So about the two of them, I mean, do you kind of see the targets being Burks the number 1 target and then Okonkwo the number 2?
I think there's even a chance that Okonkwo gets the most targets. I think it's a possibility. I think the Titans, because, and obviously, like we said, the Hopkins conversation could change this, but right now, if you look at the Titans wide receiver group outside of Treylon Burks, there's nobody who you'd feel confident playing at wide receiver there. And I don't think that's even from a fantasy perspective. I think that's from a real life football perspective. So I think, in my opinion, that Okonkwo has a chance to maybe even be split out at wide receiver a little bit and him to even get some wide receiver snaps. So I think that there's a chance that Okonkwo could get just as many targets as Burks. I think Burks maybe could be the downfield, like where Burks would have 4 catches for 96 yards and he caught a 40-yarder. I think you could have, Okonkwo being 6 for 86, where he's getting maybe some of those shorter targets. He's getting more receptions. Burks is hitting a big play every game that kind of makes up for it. But I think Okonkwo may even be, the more consistent guy on a week-to-week basis if you're in a PPR format. I do want to throw this out here. From a fantasy perspective, I'm seeing a guy like Dalton Kincaid, the rookie tight end from the Buffalo Bills, being drafted in a very similar spot to Okonkwo. And I just think that's insane. Rookie tight ends tend to have one of the tougher learning curves of any position in the NFL. It usually takes them a while. You have a guy like Dawson Knox. You have Stephon Diggs and the wide receiver options that you have in Buffalo. You have all of that going on, and people are taking a rookie tight end in a similar spot as Okonkwo, who led the NFL last year in catches 40 yards or more. He had 3 of them. Everybody else in the NFL was 2 or less. He led rookie tight ends in yards and catches. He led all tight ends in yards per route run last year. So I think that the value that you get on Okonkwo, whether it be, regular season, best ball, dynasty, I just think he's one of the more overlooked fantasy options. And at a place like tight end, where there's like 2 good options that you feel comfortable about, and then after that it falls off, I'd much rather wait down to get Okonkwo. Tannehill stays healthy, like bringing it full circle, like we talked about at the beginning. If Tannehill is healthy throughout the season, Okonkwo, I think, is a lock to be a top 8 tight end. So I think that you could get great value on Okonkwo, and I think he proved last year that. And the thing is, last year, like you mentioned, I knew that this was what Mike Vrabel would do. Mike Vrabel never wants to play rookies too much too early on. He always makes them earn it. It's always late in the season before they get the snaps that they deserve. Okonkwo didn't go over 50% of the offensive snaps, but I think twice last season. So he's going to play way more now. If Tannehill is healthy and the offense is just slightly better at protecting Tannehill, Okonkwo is going to have a big year. So I think he's a tremendous value right now to fantasy players, especially if you're a best ball person and people aren't quite clicking yet how much opportunity, because fantasy is all about talent versus opportunity, right? How much are they going to get the ball? What can they do with the ball when they get it? And Okonkwo proved last year that when he gets the ball, he could do some pretty great things with it. So now you match that with the volume. I think you got yourself a breakout player this year.
Oh, I'm so pumped. I'm pumped. One last question on Burks. Burks, health, from a health standpoint, he's looking top notch, tip top.
Well, last year there was some, I'll say, drama, controversy or whatever with Burks at the rookie mini camps and the OTAs and stuff. He has asthma. And he, anybody who has breathing issues, asthma, allergies, anything like that, when you go into a new environment with new pollens and new allergens and all those, and I'm not a doctor or anything, so if I'm explaining it incorrectly to our doctors out there, our medical personnel, my apologies. You're punching your radios right now. But the point is, when he came to Nashville, he wasn't used to the environment. And quite frankly, he wasn't used to the intensity of the NFL. He had always been bigger, stronger, faster than everybody. He wasn't maybe a guy who had to worry about the little fine details all the time. He even admitted recently this year that he struggled with some of the playbook last year. So Burks this year, though, all of the reports, he's slimmer, he's more confident, he's faster, he's more conditioned to not only, being in football shape, but just to the environment that he's in. He's just much more settled and calm and peaceful of a person. And I don't mean to get too existential here in terms of your, feeling the universe and all that stuff, but Burks is just in a totally different mental space this year as a second-year player than he was last year. And I think that he has a chance to really break out and be a top 25 wide receiver talent-wise in the league, and with the opportunities that he should get on the Titans offense. I think Burks is a guy who you probably end up in your flex position. I'm in a league where you start 3 wide receivers every week. Burks is absolutely going to be a starter in those scenarios week in and week out. So he's a much different person than we saw last year. And I think that's going to and he had a pretty good season last year when he was on the field last year. So I think that's going to prove to put him in a great spot this year to make a big impact in football in general, but also, of course, in fantasy.
Yeah, I love year 2 wide receivers. Love year 2 wide receivers. So I'm gonna keep an eye on him. All right. Well, we've delayed it enough. That beast.
Right.
I mean, Derrick Henry, I mean, is just, he's ageless, he's timeless. Everybody keeps talking about the cliff, and all reports are he's full speed ahead. He had almost 350 carries last year, and it doesn't look like he's slowing down. I mean, we go year to year when it comes to the running back position, but he's going for, late first round, early second round in underdog drafts. Pretty much more of the same this year with him.
I think it's going to be one of those years where he's another top 5 running back performance, and people are kicking themselves because he fell to 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that, because we have this societal view on running backs. But what I think people don't quite, when they look at Derrick Henry, people go, oh, that guy, he's different than anybody else we've ever seen. But then when we talk about how Derrick Henry is going to age, nobody takes that feeling and applies it to his production. Look, this guy is an all-time special worker. I mean, he's an all-time special running back probably. But when it comes to working on his physique, being in shape, being in condition, everybody in the NFL will tell you they work hard. And you know what? Compared to a regular person, they probably are working hard from an athletic standpoint. But who's working that Hall of Fame level work ethic? It's Derrick Henry. Is Ezekiel Elliott doing that? I don't know. Did Le'Veon Bell do that? I don't think so. So some of these players that he gets compared to, and Todd Gurley had the defective knee. Derrick Henry doesn't have some long-term issue medical-wise. Derrick Henry broke his foot, came back the next year, had over 15 yards rushing, and set career records in catches and receiving yards after the injury that was supposed to be the beginning of the end. And the Titans had the worst offensive line in the NFL last year. For a majority of the season, their offensive line was 3 or 4 backups. Okay? The Titans have revamped the offensive line, and I don't know if it's going to be miles better, but if it's just a little bit better, and Derrick Henry with the worst offensive line and with Malik Willis at quarterback or Josh Dobbs at quarterback for a majority of the season, Derrick Henry still went over 1,500 yards and had career highs in catches and yards receiving. So if he did that with the state of the help around him in the Titans offense last year, what's he going to do this year when things are improved and there's a new offense and all these? I think Derrick Henry is 1,600 yards, 12 rushing touchdowns. And I just think that he's a top 5 pick. If you're doing a complete total redraft with no futures or anything like that, Derrick Henry is a smash running back 1. I mean, people talk themselves out of this every year, but then we get to the end of the season, it's like, oh, that big monster of a running back went for 1,500 and 10 touchdowns again. Oh man, so, shocker. You know what I mean? So don't fool yourselves, folks. Just don't take the bait on the hot new, oh, he's going to regress this year. Take Derrick Henry. You're going to get the production that you need.
And keep in mind, for those Familia, you who are expecting to be playing in the fantasy playoffs, week 17, which is championship week for fantasy playoffs, they take on the Texans. And what does he do against the Texans? We all know.
Run for 200 yards every single time. I mean.
Yeah, he's my DFS. Every time they play the Texans, I'm like, he's not on my fantasy team. He's on my DFS teams that week. So get him going. They did add Tyjae Spears to the running back room. Is it just insurance pretty much?
That is one of those things that remains to be seen. I think that Tyjae Spears, like if you're in a dynasty league or you're in a best ball league, I think that Spears is a guy you should target because last year, Dontrell Hilliard, he ended up getting hurt, but he was the Titans' second string running back, And when you have a guy like Derrick Henry, one of the things that you have to have is a running back to complement him. Derrick Henry may have set career highs in catches and receiving yards last year, but we're not going to mistake Derrick Henry for Darren Sproles. He's not that scat back out of the backfield on third down, catching the ball. It's just never going to be Derrick Henry's game. So the Titans always have to have somebody who they feel confident in that role. Last year, Dontrell Hilliard led the Tennessee Titans in touchdown catches as a running back, as a backup running back to Derrick Henry. So the Titans do put an emphasis on that third down running back role. And because teams like to play man coverage against the Titans so much, oftentimes you can get a running back matched up with a linebacker, and the Titans will look to take advantage of that matchup. I think not only can Spears play that role for the Titans, but he's actually going to spell Derrick Henry a little bit and actually get some real carries on first and second down. And the Titans are, like I mentioned, their wide receiver issues already and how that could help a tight end like Chigo Okonkwo. But I think that could also help Tyjae Spears, because Spears can be lined up as a wide receiver. They bring him in motion, fake a handoff to him, hand it to Henry, or fake the handoff to Henry and throw it quickly out to Spears. I think they're going to use him in some less than traditional ways, and they're going to get him the ball and put the ball in his hands. So I wouldn't take him too highly up in the draft until we see exactly how he is going to be used. But based on how he could be used, I think Spears could be a guy who maybe by the middle of the season, people are putting in their flex position and starting him week to week because of the opportunities he can get. So I wouldn't go too high with that, because you're kind of seeing is believing. But I think Spears is a guy people need to keep in the back of their minds, because I think he could have an impact on certain weeks if the Titans play against a really good rush defense, or they're expected to get down early because they play a much better offense. I think Spears, like Hilliard, who a lot of the times last year, not to pat myself on the back, but I could tell, I watched the film. Hey, this team doesn't do a good job covering the running back. This team scores a lot of points. They're going to get up early on the Titans. This team, real good run defense. They're going to have to throw the ball more. It was pretty obvious when it would be a Dontrell Hilliard game, and I was able to take advantage in daily fantasy and in my season-long leagues, picking him up. I think Spears could be a guy who has even more talent than that, so people are going to keep him on the bench. So I would look to draft him late in drafts and just hang on to him, especially if it's like a best ball or something like that. I think that would make a ton of sense as well.
Outstanding. So you touched on the offensive line a little bit, the problems that it had last year. Obviously, injuries were a big part, and that led to injuries to Tannehill, and added Peter Skoronski in the first round, where a lot of people thought they might take Will Levis, and then they got Levis later. But I'm always a big offensive line guy. Have they done enough to get not necessarily going from worst to first, but maybe at least to the middle, which is, I think, at least where you want to be?
Yeah, I think if the Titans took their offensive line play from end of the NFL to above 20, it'll make a huge impact on the team. So they added Peter Skoronski in the first round. He could maybe play left tackle, but I think right now he's probably going to play left guard. They added Andre Dillard, who was a backup in Philadelphia, but Philadelphia has the best offensive line in the league. So if you take one of their backups, that might be better than some starters around the NFL. And Dillard's a former first-round pick, so they're probably going to play him at left tackle. They're moving Aaron Brewer from left guard to center, which he's real small. He's the smallest starting offensive lineman in the NFL, so playing at center makes more sense for him than playing at guard. They'll bring in Daniel Brunskill from the 49ers, who's another guy who started a lot in his career, but came off the bench for San Francisco last year, a utility offensive lineman. He'll probably play right guard, and they'll bring back second-year player Nicholas Petit-Ferrer at right tackle. I think the Titans' offensive line could be improved in a major way, but like you said, if they're just improved to get them into the middle of the pack, that is going to have such a big impact on Derrick Henry running the ball. It's going to have a big impact on Tannehill. And one of the things that the Titans focused on, they realized we can't just have a run-blocking offensive line where these guys struggle in pass. They all struggle in pass protection, but they're good in the run game. There has to be some balance to that. So they bring in Andre Dillard, who's much more of a pass protector. They bring in Daniel Brunskill, who's been more effective in pass protection. Skoronski obviously didn't give up a sack the entire last season. So I think all of the guys that the Titans brought in new this year are better pass protectors than the guys that they had before. So I think the offensive line improvements, not just because they improved the talent, But because those guys are much better at pass protection than their previous groups, I think that's where we'll really see an impact. So in pass protection specifically, I think the Titans should be majorly improved, which for fantasy purposes with Burks and Tannehill and Sharp and Spears and Okonkwo, that's obviously important for them.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right, so the other side of the ball, and this was kind of a weird. They were number one against fewest yards rushing allowed,
Right?
but most passing yards allowed.
Yeah.
So I don't think they've done anything to slow down their. I mean, I think they're still going to be one of the best run defenses, but have they
Right.
improved the
Right.
pass defense to at least a middling
Well,
level?
I think the big thing that got them last year, and honestly, this could, if you really talk about the Titans and you really want to get down to what has to change, it's the injuries. In 2021, the Titans got the number one seed in the AFC, but they led the NFL in players on their roster with 91, an NFL record. And then they followed that up last year in 2022, 34 players were on injured reserve at one point or another during the season. That was the league high. So the Titans just have to find a way to quit getting injured so much. I mean, people in Tennessee, a lot of people want to just say, oh, bad luck, bad luck. But I'm sorry, Jorge, when patterns start to develop, you can't call it bad luck. And a lot of the players are talking about how hard Mike Vrabel works them during the offseason, like right now, during OTAs and minicamp. A lot of the players the Titans signed in free agency this offseason have said, oh, they work way harder here than they do other places during summer months. Well, maybe that's why by the middle of the season, all their guys start breaking down. So maybe Mike Vrabel shouldn't be running these guys into the ground in May and June and should be keeping them fresher. But that's not what they're doing. They're keeping their same philosophy of we're building a callus. We're going to work as hard as physically possible at all times, and that'll keep us in condition when we start to feel bad later in the year. 2 years in a row, that didn't work. So I don't know why they think it's going to work this year. But if the Titans stay healthy, Amani Hooker and Kevin Byard in the back are the best safety duo in the NFL, in my opinion. They're both ball hawks. Both of them have the tendency to take the ball away, which is huge for the Titans defense because you're right. The Titans don't put a lot of money into their cornerback position. They focus their money on the pass rush, and they believe that if the pass rush is good enough, you could take average cornerbacks and make them look like good cornerbacks because of the pressure. And then you have those two safeties back there who are a lot better than average. Kevin Byard's the best safety in the league, in my opinion. You have those two safeties in Hooker and Byard, and you start getting pressure on the quarterback. Quarterbacks start to make mistakes, and those two ball hawks find a way to create turnovers. And that's what the Titans want to be. They don't care about the yards. They care about points, and they care about turnovers. So, to me, the Titans haven't done a ton to improve the talent in the secondary, but they added Arden Key in free agency in the pass rush. Harold Landry should be back from tearing his ACL before the season last year. The Titans are hoping that the pass rush will be more consistent and better this year, and that will have a positive impact on the cornerbacks. And if the top cornerbacks on the team just stay healthier than last year, then they should be able to really improve in the pass defense. The Titans also added a coach named Chris Harris, who's the defensive back coach for the Washington Commanders the last 2 years. And he is renowned within the industry for his ability to improve young defensive backs. So the Titans are hoping that with the addition of Chris Harris to the coaching staff, along with the things that I just talked about in the pass rush, that will improve the play in the secondary, and they can kind of, because even if the Titans defense is good, you're giving up the most passing yards in the entire NFL. It's going to be hard to win the amount of games that they want to win.
No, that's fantastic. So, and the thing is, I think that's very important to keep in mind that the Titans aren't looking at this as a rebuild, and this is very. I mean, I know the Jaguars are considered the favorites, but I was just looking at BetMGM. The Titans are the number two, number two team in there, and there's two other teams in the division who are rebuilding with rookie quarterbacks. So I don't think it's out of the ordinary to think that that they could be pretty good.
No, I think they just need a little bit of health and some of the stuff that we talked about. They got
Mhm.
a new offense with the new offensive coordinator, those second-year players, Burks and Okonkwo, the offensive line. You know what you're going to get from Tannehill and Henry if you give them decent, play around them. So can all the other factors on offense change? And let's just call it what it is. The Titans were 7-3 and looked like they had a stranglehold on the division last year. They had half the team go on IR and finished on a 7-game losing streak where they're starting their third quarterback and 4 out of 5 backup offensive linemen. I mean, if the Titans even stayed, 25% more healthy last year, they win the division. And I wonder what the conversation would be around it now. So, yeah, the Jaguars are the favorite and they deserve to be that. But I think all it would take is a little bit of health from the Titans and one or two things going correctly from the new people they added. And I think the Titans would be right back there ready to take the division back.
Do you have a win total that you're looking at?
Well, right now I'm looking at 8 wins based on what I see right now, 8-9, I would say. But we've been kind of hinting about it throughout because it's a developing situation. But if the Titans do find a way to add DeAndre Hopkins, they turn their biggest weakness on their roster to a strength. And I think if they added Hopkins, they're looking at 10 or 11 wins. And I do think that they would come back and win the division if they're able to add DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, and Vrabel always seems to figure out how to win games that
Great coach.
it looks like they have no chance to win. So that's a great thing. Oh man,
Yeah.
man, amigo, as always, you just hit it out of the park, hit it out of the park. So we're gonna close out. You hinted at me offline before we started recording about that you expanded a little bit on so Mexican food takes, caliente takes.
Right. Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's much of a hot take because I'm sure the Familia that listen on a regular basis, they're well aware. But I'm a big chimichanga fan. As you know, we talk about it all the time. But it's not always the best idea to do deep fries in home. Gets a little messy. Gets a little difficult at times. But me personally, I just moved. I got a grill, and I've really enjoyed working on carne asada. Just trying to perfect it. I find it more tasty than just your average steak that you eat, American style steak or whatever you want to call it. Love carne asada, and I've done some of my best work with carne asada recently. So I'm always trying to learn and improve my techniques. And as you hinted, you're going to send me a familial recipe there that I can't wait to try. But yeah, all I can say is that the further I dive into the cuisine, the more I realize how much better it is than what I have available to me on a daily basis. So excited to continue to try things out, but I can't wait to get on that recipe you're going to send for some carne asada as I continue my love story with it.
And it's perfect. It's summer, it's grilling season.
Yes, exactly.
It's so good. There's only one problem with the carne asada recipe. You end up eating it. You end up eating a bunch when it's coming off the grill.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
people are like, "Where?" The people you're cooking for, you're like, "Hey, where's the food?" It's like, it was here a little
Oh, no, no. Yeah. You never know. I live in in kind of a what would I would say? I wouldn't say it's too natural or anything, but I live pretty close to some reservoirs and stuff like that. I'll just blame it on a deer or something. One of these animals came in and stole the carne asada. Sorry, everybody.
Oh my goodness. Mi amigo, I always end up smiling when I talk to you. So thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Muchas gracias for joining us. So close up shop. Point everybody to all the cool stuff.
Sure. Locked on Titans, Monday through Friday. Tennessee Titans content free all year round. As I was saying earlier, YouTube, any podcast app that you use, you can find it there. You can find me on Twitter at Tic Tac Titans. I do a lot of film work during the season. I'm always chopping it up, talking about stuff going on with the Titans, other stuff in the NFL as well. And since the last time we spoke, I started writing for Sports Illustrated. So I cover the Titans for Sports Illustrated. You can find that at alltitans.com. Just Google SI Titans. All my stuff will be there. So those are the 3 things that I plug every time. And that's there's 1, 2, 3. There you go.
Oh, fantastic. The Sports Illustrated writers have been very, very good to Familia FFB podcast. I probably almost half of the people who come on are SI writers, and it's just I
Nice.
love the insight. So gracias. And again, gracias everybody for joining us. We're trying to keep these a little on the shorter side, get them more digestible, and keep coming back to it because I'm going to put together a playlist for the NFL Insider Series. So you're going to get all 32 teams right in there. So keep coming back to give us that like and subscribe. Set those notifications on YouTube, por favor. And again, one last time, when you go to underdogfantasy.com, put in that promo code Familia23, Familia23 if you're doing it in Spanish. I'm going to match you your first $100. You put in $100, the underdog's going to match you another $100. Play Best Ball Mania, play puppies, everything that's going on. There's going to be anything that's going to be named after dogs. You can imagine it's going to be on Underdog Familia. So, just thank you so much. Muchas gracias otra vez to our invitado Tyler, and thank you for joining us. And remember, todos somos familia. Salud.